So let's talk about furries. It was addressed by a child a couple months ago that they are put in an environment where there are kids that identify as a furry, a cat or a dog, whatever. And so yesterday I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has in one of the unisex bathrooms, a litter box for the kids that identify as cats.
As China threatens to invade neighbours, we're cringing when someone tells us he's an antelope, and we better acknowledge he's got hooves, whether or not visible. How could we possibly win a war with an army filled with dogs and cats? So what you just heard me read out there is basically a Republican in Iowa expressing his thoughts on the new moral panic. Now, Republicans are in a bit of a moral panic about everything these days. So-called critical race theory taking over schools, loads of things to do with bathroom bills, and now they've focused in on furries and the furry community. Like most moral panics these people are engaged in right now, most of the stuff they're saying does not even exist. It's not actually happening. Children are not asking for litter boxes at school. Children aren't going around pretending they're animals all the time just because they're furries. But just like with the other moral panics, it's all just like a propaganda issue. Republicans love to do these things because they distract you with culture war stuff while they loot your pockets and essentially always make your life worse. Now, I know a fair few of my audience are actually furries, and funnily enough, I have a bit of a strange connection with furries myself, because I don't know if you guys remember, about a year ago, I actually made a video about furries. It's gone now because I got it copyright striked. I actually attribute that video to a lot of my recent success because it blew up on the first month of 2021, and my growth on YouTube really hasn't slowed down since then. I actually want to get back to that issue that I discussed a year ago, but I think I'm going to save that for next week. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this new moral panic in Republican controlled areas, talk about like what's going on in these schools with furries, talk about the recent popularity of the furry community with young people, and then also talk at the end a bit about the left-wing politics of a lot of furries and how they don't actually like the police. Before we go any further, you guys often say that you don't like the video unless I tell you. So if you like the video, please leave a like, maybe a comment as well to help this video in the algorithm. Also, if you're new, consider subscribing. Also, for anyone, consider becoming a patron to support my work continuing no matter what YouTube does with its monetization stuff going forward. I want to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible, and the benefits of that are getting my Nintendo Switch friend code at the moment. I think you can only have 100 Nintendo Switch friends, so while that lasts, people can add me on it, and also you get access to the private patrons Discord server. I'm sorry about the lack of live streams, but I usually live stream on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and that stuff is archived on the Kavernacle Extra. That is my second channel. Also, just because I can hear it in the background, I'm using audio software which really minimizes outside audio, but I can hear a bunch of Spanish kids cheering in the background. If that comes through, I apologize. I can't do anything about that. So before we dive into the issues with furries and conservatives at various school districts, for those of you who don't know what a furry is, maybe I should make it clear. So essentially, a furry is someone with like a persona. It's like an animal persona. And the common misconception is furries always go around wearing these expensive fur costumes, but a furry can be anyone who sort of like has an avatar on Twitter and is part of the furry community. You don't have to go around dressing up as an animal to be considered a furry, although that is what people know it for most. And historically, it has been seen as like some sort of kink thing, but by and large, it isn't really about that, especially anymore. Pretty much, it's like constructing an alternative identity online, and the people who like these anthropomorphic animals. But like I said, a lot of my own community are furries, because although there are problems in the furry community, with some of them being fash, most of them do lean to the left, and I think disproportionately there is a lot of crossover with the LGBT community. So let's get into Daily Beast's coverage of this whole issue. So Kelly Wheel of the Daily Beast reporting, furry panic is the latest dumb GOP attack on public schools. It happened every time a school board member spoke up about changes to the Central York School District's pandemic plan. Meow, a group of 4 people were taunt from the back of the room. Cat, Amelia Macmillan, a parent in the Pennsylvania district, recognized the 4 people. They'd supported Central York's recent and now overturned ban on certain school books, many of them about race, After the mid-January meeting ended, Macmillan said she saw the group corner a local father in a hallway. They were yelling at him about his kid being a furry, Macmillan told the Daily Beast. The group cited an email someone sent to the board about furries. I heard him say, leave my kid out of this. 2 administrators from the school broke up this interaction and shuffled the 4 aggressors out of the building and then asked the father if he was alright. He told everyone standing there, myself included, that they were calling his child a furry and he asked them to stop. Why are school board attendees in a panic about supposed furries in the classroom? In Pennsylvania, Maine, Michigan, and Iowa in recent months, school board meetings have been disrupted by allegations that educators are giving special treatment to furry students. While false, the widespread hoaxes play into a broader right-wing effort to discredit and demand further control over public education. It's a culture war, it's control, and it's not about protecting kids. Patch O'Fur, proprietor of the furry news site Dog Patch Press, told the Daily Beast, if you actually look at who's doing this, at some of the political groups getting involved, they're all far right. The rumours simmered for months in districts like Central York last year, where a concerned parents Facebook group promoted fears that furries could be in your child's classroom hissing at your child and licking themselves. But it was in Michigan's Midland School District, not Central York, that the claims finally caught fire. So here is a video that was going viral on a page called Libs of TikTok. I don't know why Libs of TikTok isn't actually posting liberals from TikTok, but take a look at this video quick.
Hi Lisa, welcome.
Hi, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
I have a speech prepared to read regarding the test to stay program and how unconstitutional it is, but I need to address something else, not just to you as the board, but to parents and grandparents and taxpayers in our community. Still wrapping my brain around this a little bit, but yesterday I heard something and I was stunned. And today I am equally stunned and a little bit upset. Well, not a little bit, a lot of bit upset, furious. I would even use that word, but I want to talk about the fact that, and I know this is going on nationwide, so it is not just for this board, but our community needs to understand that the agenda that is being pushed through our schools is, just my opinion, but somewhat nefarious when it comes to some of the activities. So let's talk about furries. It was addressed by a child a couple months ago that they are put in an environment where there are kids that identify as a furry, a cat or a dog, whatever. And so yesterday I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has in one of the unisex bathrooms, a litter box for the kids that identify as cats. And I am really disturbed by that. And I will do some more investigation on that. I know it's going on nationwide. I know it is. It's part of the agenda that's being pushed. I don't even want to understand it. But I think that people need to be aware of it, because I am really upset as a parent that my child is put in an environment like that. And you know, I'm all for creativity and imagination, but when someone lives in a fantasy world and expects other people to go along with it, I have a problem with that.
So you can see even from that video that the moral panic is linked to like a lot of the moral panic all these people have been pushing. Also, Americans in the comments, what is the deal with school boards in America? Why do the most crazy people get to decide what a certain school puts in their curriculum or rules in the actual school itself? Also, English people in the comments, do we have a similar system like that and it's just like not as crazy? Because why are there always absolute crazy people showing up to these things and talking about this stuff? But there you can see it, like talking about the unisex bathroom, so fits in nicely with the recent demonization of like LGBT groups and stuff, especially trans people, but historically gay people as well, and basically making it seem like their children are not safe. And it's just an extension of that. So now they not only have to all share bathrooms, there are litter boxes in the bathroom in case a child identifies as an animal. Because conservatives all know that like once you normalize people being transgender, the next step is people will just identify as whatever they want, including like attack helicopters. Soon we're going to have to put like helicopter pads on the roof for children who identify as attack helicopters. So again, like ridiculous culture war stuff. The bigotry isn't really even veiled that much. And obviously it sounds very, very fake. But this was actually picked up by people in the GOP. So Michigan GOP co-chair Sean Maddock soon amplified the cat scat claims Kids who identify as furries get a litter box in the school bathrooms. Parent heroes will take back our schools, they wrote on Facebook. Midland public schools do not provide litter boxes, unisex or otherwise. The district superintendent debunked the rumour, escaping email, so I'm going to read you that email quick. So from their Facebook page, it was published, Michael E. Sharrow, superintendent of schools, Midland Public Schools, communication regarding false accusations made at December MPS Board of Education meeting. Good afternoon, Midland Public School staff, families and community members. It is unconscionable that this afternoon I am sending this communication. However, our Midland PS stakeholders may be confused about a false message accusation that has resurfaced this week and is gaining traction in the social media realm. At the December 20th Board of Education meeting, a community member addressed the Board of Education. During her comment, she stated that litter boxes were provided within MPS student restrooms for those who identify themselves as furries. Let me be clear in this communication, there is no truth whatsoever to this false statement accusation. There has never been litter boxes within MPS schools. It is such a source of disappointment that I felt the necessity to communicate this message to you. In this divisive, contentious world in which we currently find ourselves, I ask that if you hear wild accusations that don't sound like something in which your Midland Public Schools Board of Education Administration District would be part, take a moment to send an MSP Connect message to me. Midland Public Schools' main emphasis was, is, and it will always will be to educate our community's children with excellence, integrity, and respect. However, despite this, the allegations soon spread to Texas, where a GOP candidate and activist with the right-wing parents group Mums for Liberty added her own baseless claims about special privileges for furry students. Cafeteria tables are being lowered in certain Round Rock ISD middle and high schools to allow furries to more easily eat without utensils or their hands. Like a dog eats from a bowl, she tweeted. This allegation wasn't true either. In fact, chatter about litter boxes and doggy bowls display a misunderstanding about the furry community, which eats like everyone else, says Sharon Roberts, an associate professor at the University of Waterloo and a member of the academic research team for science. So another Daily Beast article elaborating on this a bit further. More rumours started to appear at the start of the 21 to 2022 school year. In August, an anonymous grandparent told Kentucky's WLKY that her grandchildren were being bullied in class by students who made hissing noises. The district superintendent told the station that a small number of students had violated the dress code by wearing cat ears or tails and that the situation was under control, but the rumour was picked up by blogs in Iowa and Idaho, promoting the stories as full, claiming that furry students were being granted special privileges or being exempt from homework because they can't grip pencils with paws. The blogs noticed that schools had denied the allegations, but the authors went on to say they'd heard more rumours from local people. Such rumours, if true, threatened to weaken the US military, an Iowa commentator wrote. As China threatens to invade neighbours, we're cringing when someone tells us he's an antelope, and we better acknowledge he's got hooves, whether or not visible. How could we possibly win a war with an army filled with dogs and cats? More furry fears in Maine, where a speaker at a school board meeting spoke requesting information regarding the district's stance on allowing students who identify as animals to be an exception to the dress code. Another speaker in Minnesota asked, why are kids being allowed to dress up like animals in our schools? They're being allowed to growl and bark at the teachers. They're allowed to wear leashes and collars and tails, and they just bark, but God forbid a kid wears a Trump hat to school. They're told to take that off immediately. So obviously, like I was saying, it goes hand in hand with a lot of general conservative bigotry. Also shows how easily conservatives fall for misinformation and how Facebook has essentially rotted their brain. I'm kind of lucky, like my grandparents and my own parents don't like use the internet and are not that susceptible to this misinformation just because they do not even know like how it works. But you can tell a lot of these people are older, obviously don't have a great education and can't even look up on like Google what a furry actually is, thinking that children are actually going around on all fours in school and having like special privileges, including not having to do homework because they have paws instead of hands. I mean, it sounds completely ridiculous, and it is completely ridiculous, but the rumour about litter boxes has been going around for a while. So Patch Fur and the Dog Patch Press have been mentioned, so just wanted to read the article to elaborate a bit further on where these sort of myths even come from in the first place. So, origins of an urban legend, litter boxes for furries joke gets revived for moral panic. So Furry Patch saying, The first time I heard the litter box myth, I wasn't offended. I laughed shamelessly and used it to write a satirical promotion for a furry event, let's say, at the club in San Francisco. The party was real and you could get a ticket. The inspiration came from a 2014 post on Anthracon's forum by one of the con's original founders. Litter boxes. This one's the bona fide urban legend, first circulated around 2007 when the Brewers baseball team and Bob Uecker shared one of our hotels. Their subsequent sports broadcast ridiculing furries with manufactured tales of litter boxes and such was widely heard. To this day, comments to articles about furries have often included one or more individuals making the litter box claim, insisting eyewitness veracity. It's proven to stick with the same tenacity of CSI and Vanity Fair. The inclusion of this in the respective comment thus throws every prior claim into question as well. So that is just like where this stuff comes from originally, but of course it doesn't take a genius to see that like a lot of boomers probably associate identifying as a furry as you thinking that you're some sort of animal and you need all the like facilities an animal does. But the Daily Beast article continuing, furries make a convenient target for people looking to lash out at marginalized identities, particularly the LGBT community, which has a higher than average representation among furries. Ofer noted, multiple litter box hoaxes make explicit reference to gender neutral litter boxes, which is kind of what I was saying earlier, or claims that students identify as furries. They're demonizing minorities by proxy with a target behind the target. It's a cousin to the identify as an attack helicopter, using weirdos to make it seem easier to swallow. That's not to say furries aren't in school. A recent Rolling Stone article showcased a thriving TikTok-based furry youth scene. It's a space for creativity and play. Young furries and their parents explained, like any youth subculture. So before we move on to why furries are becoming like more visible in like Western culture, I think we should just like address all what's been said so far. Is that like basically what I was saying earlier, moral panic against furries in school is part of like a broader moral panic about all kinds of diversity and inclusion, because the right wing in America have been emboldened by Trump and this culture war stuff on like things like critical race theory apparently being taught in schools, and of course even before that the whole row over bathrooms and everything like that. And furries makes like a nice mask to attack this stuff without being as explicit, but not like these people really mind about being explicit anyway, and it's just part of this wider targeting of school boards by the right wing in America and trying to push their agenda no matter what, even to children. And funnily enough, these guys always pretend they're trying to protect their children from political indoctrination while advocating for political indoctrination. Mainly the indoctrination is that like America is the best country on earth, can never do anything wrong, and leftism is pushing an anti-America agenda into schools. Part of the broader like conspiracy said by people like Jordan Peterson that leftists have infiltrated all levels of academia and are pushing woke, whatever that means. So now I'm going to go on to why the furry culture is rising, and then talking about mainly the more left-wing politics of this community. So a Rolling Stone article by E.J. Dixon, why are so many Gen Z kids becoming furries? The fandom is blowing up on TikTok, where furries like Pikes, 195,000 followers, Harfy, 119,000 followers, and Barry Angel Dragon, 98,000 followers, have amassed large audiences in a relatively short amount of time due to their cuddly and colourful personas. It is also TikTok that played host to the latest incarnation of a furry versus gamer wars, a meme from earlier this year that essentially consisted of both factions roasting each other via TikTok duets. A 23-year-old from Houston, Texas, Pikes says 73% of his followers are between the ages of 13 and 18, and that most of them are female, a gender breakdown that actually deviates from that of the furry fandom as a whole, which tends to skew male. Teenage girls tend to be drawn to the more cutesy side of the fandom, as opposed to the drinking, party, and more adult side, which skews more masculine, he says. A lot of kids will be on TikTok because it's very catered towards a young demographic, and the content is short, and kids have a very short attention span. A lot of times they'll see a furry, and they'll want to see what it's about, and they'll join the fandom that way. In most respects, furry TikTok isn't that much different from normie TikTok, with furries doing dances or comedy videos to various popular audios, but simply by virtue of its time constraints and its hyper-addictive algorithm, it's less personality-driven than, say, YouTube, which is also what draws furries concerned about protecting their identities of the platform. Many furry content creators on TikTok also make the fandom seem less threatening to parents who may be concerned about the other aspects of the fandom. Before TikTok got big, parents were scared to bring their kids to a furry convention, says Barry, 25, a yellow and black dragon, and a former US Air Force field technician. If one parent sees a TikTok and they say, "This isn't too bad," then they tell another parent too. So as content creators like Pikes continue to amass an even larger audience, and as nerd culture in general becomes increasingly mainstream, it's possible that furry fans, like other members of previously marginalized and misunderstood subcultures, won't have to linger in the shadows forever. So I said earlier that this fandom does lean left-wing, and we're going to get into that argument with a cop organization. But there is a subreddit for left-wing furries called Bark Marks, and then you have posts like this from the industrial worker that they're sharing. If you run a business or make a living from commissions making fursuits, you have a place in the Textile and Leather Workers Industrial Union 410. Those who make a living doing freelance artwork or persona commissions, you have a place in Printing and Publishing Workers Industrial Union 450. Sharing other things like Workers of the World Unite, Digimon support unionization, another post supporting basic income for all. So just moving on, their fight with the cops. So enraged furries make internet hell for rabid pro-cop group. If you've ever dressed up in an anthropomorphic animal suit for fun, there's a good chance the National Police Association has blocked you on Twitter. The National Police Association is a pro-police non-profit that actual police organisations have accused of being a scam. Since last week, the two groups have been in a raging catfight, with the NPA accusing furries of sending them obscene images and the furries accusing the NPA of preemptively blocking people with cartoon animal avatars. Furries speculated that either a bored social media manager was manually blocking members of their community, or that the NPA was using some kind of automated block list which had labelled furry accounts as unsavoury. The NPA's president, Eddie Hutchinson, told the Daily Beast on Tuesday that he'd been unaware of furries until his organisation had incurred their wrath. Sometimes when people post obscene images on our timeline, we will block them. Sometimes when they are affiliated accounts posting obscene images, we block the accounts they follow. It could be some of those blocked were self-described furries and they have taken particular exception to being blocked. Furries can quote tweet the NPA's account, and while the Daily Beast discovered a trove of anti-police memes in the account's quote tweets, there were a few images that could reasonably be called not safe for work. Among them was a shirtless drawing of Tom Nook, a raccoon from the Animal Crossing video games. Police, particularly police dogs, have posed a hairy dilemma for furries in the past. Following a police crackdown on protesters in Boston in 2016, participants in the region's Anthro New England conference debated whether to continue supporting a charity that bought vests for police dogs. Earlier this year, the long-running Texas Furry Fiesta announced a new policy against any attire that is genuine or gives the appearance of being non-fictional, military or law enforcement attire, with the exception of currently serving military or law enforcement personnel who may wear their duty uniforms. So I could go on a lot longer about the leftism within furry fandoms, but I know like a lot of my own patrons are in the furry community, a lot of people active on my Discord server are furries, a lot of people who subscribe to my channel are furries, and by and large with its crossover with the LGBT community, it seems to be a community that is mostly pro-left, and any community with generally good politics is a good thing in my books, especially when they're doing some funny activism, especially when they're trolling suspicious police charities. Now, you could obviously try and link the Republican moral panic of furries to the left-wing aspect of the community, but just because they're such boomers and they don't even understand what furries are, I don't believe the moral panic is linked at all to the left-wing aspect. But I feel like as furries as a community, like the article was saying, more young people are joining. As they become more mainstream and people start learning that, yes, even people who aren't political furries generally lean left-wing because of the community itself, I think the moral panic will be escalated even further because they're already trying to blame furries in schools being part of the agenda, and it's probably the left-wing agenda. So when they actually learn that the community themselves are actually pretty explicitly left-wing as well, it's just going to make them double down even harder that the woke left are trying to ruin everything about the family, or ruin the schools, or trying to indoctrinate your kids into being animals who use unisex litter boxes at school and don't do homework because they say they have paws. But this fear-mongering is nothing new. This has always happened in right-wing culture wars. It's obviously not even exclusive to America. It's, across the Western world as well, including the UK, which is quite bad for this stuff too. But I just thought I'd do this video to talk about this stuff, and do not be surprised if this becomes an even bigger Republican culture war. Like critical race theory, right? No one outside of fringe Republican circles was even complaining about critical theory. I found articles from like 2012 and 2014 of like hard right Catholic organizations complaining about this stuff, but it's become mainstream in America because of people like James Lindsay, these hard right culture warriors who are just absolutely massive grifters, inventing something that is not even taught in schools, is barely even taught in universities outside certain subjects, and pretending teaching the problematic aspects of America's past is somehow left-wing indoctrination of children. And it started out small, this is starting out small, but do not be surprised if this ramps up. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you want to follow me on social media, at the Kavernacle on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to join our communities, check out the Discord and the subreddit. And if you want to support my work, please check out my Patreon. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.